All right, welcome everybody. You're listening to WRUU Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul, and I am your host, Adam Messer. This is the Adam Messer Show, and you are going to be in for a special treat today. My special guest today is Rachel Brune. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I am so happy to have you here. We are just having a great time with this new anthology that you put together, right?
Absolutely. Stories we tell after midnight.
Yeah,
And
and
I think we're 8 days down from it releasing. So
oh
yeah,
my gosh,
excited is a
yeah.
word.
And we're going to talk a lot about that, y'all. Stay tuned. Give me just a second here. I'm going to play the intro.
Okay.
And I interview authors, artists, and entertainers. We discuss their process, how they overcome obstacles, and their creative works. I hope you enjoy the show. All right. So everybody, Sebastian Messer is my son, and he always plays some heavy metal music for me. How you doing today, Bass?
Good. Yeah, good.
Doing all right. Hey, are you in the mood to play for us a little bit today?
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's Sebastian Messer, everybody. His band's called Krieger. Take it away, Bass.
Oh, he gets turned off.
Yeah. Wow, Bass. Thank you very much. Rachel, he plays for me on my shows, just as like a musical interlude, and I just enjoy it. I know I'm his dad and all, but I just think he's really talented, and I love having that little hard metal, heavy metal, thrash metal, death metal stuff on the show.
It's awesome. It's rocking. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, speaking of like kind of heavy stuff, let's talk about this Crone Girls Press horror anthology. Now, for everybody tuning in at home, cronegirlspress.com is the website. So if you want to, play along while we're talking here. And just a brief intro. We met Bobby Nash introduced us, I believe, last year sometime, and
Yeah.
we met through Facebook. And I was right after I think my Blood Thrasher, the Devils in the Middle novella came out, and you interviewed me for your infamous Scribbler website, and we just became friends, and then you had this horror anthology that you were putting together, and you invited me to be one of the authors. And so, this for me has been a first because I've never really published outside of, like for fiction, I've never published outside of my own stuff. And so tell us about what is this whole thing about?
Well, my my website lists me as an author and writing coach. And so in addition to writing, which I really enjoy and have a lot of fun doing, I edit and I help other people write the stuff that they want to write. And I've been wanting to move more into getting people to the publication stage, because I've seen a lot of really great writers who they're putting out really great material, but nobody's seeing it because they're not submitting it.
Right, right.
And so it's been a goal of mine for a while to publish an anthology, or to publish writers. And the great thing about the current state of publishing is that people can do that.
Yeah.
I can sit down and say, I want to publish a certain genre, or I want to do this or that, and you can go and do it. It's going to take some time and experience, but this year everything just kind of came together, and then I was like, you know what, it would be really great. I'm starting this small press because I love speculative fiction, and especially the darker parts of it, like horror and psychological horror and dark fantasy and grimdark and all those genres. Let me, you know what, I know all of these great authors as well, because I've been working in the writing community for a while,
Mm-hmm.
meeting people like yourself. Hey, I think this might be the right time to do it. And so that's kind of how the project coalesced, was this desire to want to publish other authors, the desire to want to work more in the darker side of speculative fiction. And like I said, I'm reading, and people are sending me these great stories. I'm wanting to see them and out in the world published so that other people can read them.
And I was so honored when you asked me if I would be willing to participate in it. Rachel, this is the time of the year where we do our annual pledge drive. And so I'm going to play a couple of those pledge drive announcements. We're all community radio station. You've been on the show before, I know, but I think you were on last year before we actually had the pledge drive set up in the fall. So the time of the year. So, or it might have been after, it might have been just after, I can't remember. But anyway, everybody, here's the pledge drive stuff. And we definitely love you listeners. This is the only way that we can do this is through your support. So here we go.
What would you do if you woke up one day and WRUU weren't on your radio dial, like it wasn't even there anymore? You would not be able to find any place in Savannah to get the kind of music and news that only this community radio station brings you. Our more than 60 volunteer hosts would not be working right now to bring you hours of entertaining and stimulating programs. And your global soul would surely miss it. Thankfully, you don't have to wake up without WRUU, because people just like you have made generous financial gifts to keep us going. We are listener-supported community radio, so your donation is essential to our continued presence on the air in Savannah. Go right now to WRUU.org and make a one-time or monthly contribution.
Support WRUU with a financial contribution of at least $10 per month, or a one-time donation of at least $107.50, and you'll receive our 2019 thank you gift, a WRUU travel tumbler. This is a 16-ounce hot or cold beverage container featuring double wall construction with a stainless steel twist-on lid, a slide lock drink opening, and the WRUU logo. It's perfect for taking hot coffee or tea, or iced water or other drinks, with you wherever you go. From car to office, home to school, or gym to bedside, the WRUU travel tumbler will refresh your body as we refresh your mind. We know the real gift of your support comes every day when you tune into Savannah's most diverse, stimulating, and passionate radio programming. Find the details about the WRUU travel tumbler as a gift of our appreciation at WRUU.org. Make your gift right now. Thanks for supporting WRUU Community Radio.
This is listener-supported WRUU 107.5 FM, and we are now in the 9th day of our annual on-air fundraising campaign. We are seeking to raise the funds that keep this radio station broadcasting the music and talk programs that you enjoy. On Saturday, we received 3 donations totaling just under $600. That means we have raised 55% of our $15,000 goal so far. That means that we are on the campaign's downhill end, and you can help us make it to the goal successfully. We set these goals so that WRUU can survive, and with your help, more than survive, thrive. And what it takes is your participation. It's very easy and affordable. You set the amount. Our $10 a month option has been very popular this year. The campaign will end soon, so help us with your financial support today at WRUU.org. And thanks again.
And
This is-
and just a personal note, everybody out there listening. My name is Adam Messer, and I am a host here on WRUU. And shows like this matter. I grew up listening to talk radio, and I love talk radio. To be able to be part of talk radio community and the podcaster stuff that's out there, like we have a Savannah. I just started the Savannah Podcaster Association for people that love talk radio and love listening to different programs. This wouldn't happen without you, the listener. So your pledges, your support, it just means the world. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for continuing to support WRUU. So, Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. Like I said, we're doing our annual support drive. And, I love being able to talk with people like yourself, who are out there, creating stuff and making new things and then also supporting other people in the realm that you're, the stuff that you're doing. So.
Absolutely. I can't stress to people enough how important it is, especially if you want to do something creative, but most particularly in writing, to actively become part of the community. Find your particular niche of people. Maybe it's people who write the same stuff you do. Maybe it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But find those people, because everybody gets really terrible rejection letters. Everybody gets criticism that they need, a drink and a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah.
You get to the point where you need that stuff, and it's really great to have people available who understand it. And then
they speak the language.
Be that person.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they speak the language. And there's been a little bit of, I know we've been in touch with each other, but I think the last time that we talked, I was more of like a pantser, and now I've really come around to being a plotter, and I wasn't so much into editing. I didn't like the editing process as much, but I've been working on that and learning to love it. And so one of the cool things about working with you, I've worked with several editors now through the newspaper. But it's a different process. There's a lot more, it's a lot quicker turnaround time. If there's any kind of like content edit, a lot of times they just make an executive decision and they make a content edit on something without, just consulting me or anything like that. It's just kind of like, okay, we got to get this done type thing. But working with you, it was, kind of like a back and forth, like a volley back and forth, like, hey, what does this sound like? Or what, how does this, I think it might work better this way and that kind of thing. And it was neat because you were the first editor that I'd worked with on a project, like this. So it was kind of neat to be able to do that.
That's definitely one of the most, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do something like this anthology. So I've been a member of writing groups for a while now,
Mm-hmm.
and I credit being a member of a writing group for helping me start to get acceptances instead of rejections all of the time when I started sending short stories out. And part of that was getting the chance to read a work in progress that wasn't your own.
Mm-hmm.
And having a chance to see how, just to see that structure, to see how you could improve first the structure,
Mm-hmm.
And then to get into the fine tuning. And when you can do that with somebody else's work, you start being able to turn that eye to your editorial process and then eventually to your writing process.
Right.
So for me, editing was just a natural evolution to wanting to be a better writer, and then to wanting to give back what, I've had people have spent a lot of time and effort to make my writing better, who the only reason they did it was because we were in the same writing group.
Yeah.
So I feel really, I feel like I owe people that same sort of care and attention. And again, that was part of the fun of the process.
Yeah, and that's a lot of work because how there's what, how many authors in this anthology?
I believe 14.
Yeah, I was going to
I
say
believe 14, yeah.
there are a lot of authors in this anthology, and the stories. I had a chance to read a couple of them, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. And I'm
Yes.
not, you know, I'm not just saying that. I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, read this because I'm in it. It's not like that. It's just I don't know these other folks. I hadn't met them. I'm in your writing group, you know, but I don't know them either. And so I was like, wow, this is cool, you know, especially to be part of a project like this.
Well, like, you know, I kind of mentioned that this has been something that I wanted to do for a while,
Mm-hmm.
but was waiting for the right time. Part of what made it possible was having been part of writing groups, having been part of different writing networks and meeting people. And some of them I met through, like yourself, through other writing acquaintances online.
Mm-hmm.
And some folks I met, well, so for instance, Jennifer Nestoiko, who wrote The Soul Within, I know her through the local Society for Creative Anachronism group. And
Oh, cool.
she mostly she mostly writes Anglo-Saxon poetry and very, very good poetry. But for me, when I mentioned I was a writer, she shared one of her short stories that had been published. And so when I was putting this idea together, she was one of the people I reached out to. And it was just simply because we had struck up a conversation. We both knew that each other liked to write,
Mm-hmm.
and she shared her stuff with me. So,
I'm gonna have
you
to
know,
talk to her
sometimes
about
that.
that for the Word Beat Poetry Hour. That'd be kind of cool
Absolutely.
to have her, you know, talking about that and maybe performing some of her poems. We're actually going to do another Word Beat Poetry Hour next month, y'all. So this month I'm focusing on like horror and, you know, scary stuff for Halloween. But we're going to have the Word Beat Poetry Hour back next month, everybody. So, but yeah, that's cool. So she does like Anglo-Saxon poetry.
Yep. Oh, and so for the month of October, um, it's actually her birthday today, which is why her name is right at the front of
Oh,
my head.
well, happy birthday.
But for the month of October, she's writing a sonnet a day,
Oh, okay.
which is an exercise that I find really mind-blowing. But I've just been enjoying, you know, following her stuff. And so, like I said, that's kind of the cool thing about meeting people who write different things.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, you never know when somebody that you have an acquaintance with from a different place, you know, a different place in your life other than the writing place, turns out to be someone who's going to send you this really incredible story for an anthology.
I was surprised at the reception that I had for my poetry book, what the night taught me, and it was just something different. Because I had written poetry in high school a lot, but as an adult, I hadn't written poetry, and I went to a poetry show at E. Shaver's Booksellers, and E. Shaver Booksellers, and Brendan Walsh was a performing poet. He had put together this Great American Poetry Crawl, and it was coming through Savannah. And just to see how many people were there that liked poetry. I never really had talked to anybody about poetry, and never shared with anybody really that I liked writing poetry. And I put together this book, and it was well received, and I was taken aback. I was like, you know, that's one of the things I like about being a writer and being an author and sharing creative stuff with other people, because they get it. You know, you think that they're not going to like it. And, you know, I'm not saying like, we're not talking about millions and millions of people. I'm talking about like, I just like connecting with other people and talking with them about what they're doing and the creative stuff that they're doing, and then sharing the stuff that I'm doing. You know, so I mean, like that. You know, this is a connection that we're going to make because of you. You know what I mean? You're going to introduce me to her, and I'm going to probably have her on the show as soon as possible. And then boom, boom, boom. That's how it goes, people. That's how it works.
It really is. It really is how it goes. I mean, there's a reason why. So I'm currently in an MFA program,
Yeah.
and it's a very pragmatic, practical writing oriented program.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a whole section on being a member of the literary community.
Yeah.
It just because it's so very important, especially nowadays when a lot of the promo and marketing that, even if you're traditionally published, you're going to still be expected to do a lot of promo and marketing. And so it really helps to find those people who support and believe in you, so that when you do, publish an anthology or publish a book of poetry, or, someone invites you to hop on their radio show, you can share that around, and you can, have some reach, which, it's really important.
Let me do a station idea. I've got a good story I want to share with you about what you just said too. Everybody, you listen to WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. And my special guest today is editor, writer, author, publisher, mother, veteran, or active duty. I'm not sure which we are right now. Reservist. Yeah, you do a lot of things, Rachel. Rachel Brune, everybody. Rachel Brune from Crone Girls Press. But yeah, what I wanted to tell you was you hit it right on the head. I know a local author who had a book deal with a branch of a larger publishing house, and they did, I guess, the traditional contract and that kind of thing. Zero marketing budget, zero advertising dollars. It was on their website, which, that really doesn't cost them anything, but zero. And she has done a phenomenal job sharing, talking to people, setting up her own events, traveling, doing that kind of thing on a $0 marketing and advertising budget from a larger company. And, I have had some friends who they have done the smaller publishing house. I got a friend who he did a small deal with a smaller publishing house, and they kind of flopped. I guess it went under or whatever. But the thing that I find, I don't spend money on advertising. What I do is I try to put out new stuff, and I try to be consistent, and I try to make it like I want it to look world class. So I'm always looking at like what bigger brands are doing and how I can kind of model after what they're doing. But I don't have any money, so what I use is social media. I use word of mouth. I use my own, blog and that kind of thing. But it really, ultimately, those things don't matter. What matters to me are the relationships that I build with people. And I would take one solid person over 100 Facebook likes any day of the week. Because that person that I'm connecting with and I'm building a relationship with, that's long term. The other stuff, it comes and goes. It's like having a cheeseburger today. Am I going to be talking about it 10 years from now? Probably not.
No, it's so true. I mean, it really is true. And I was, when you're reading the story about your friend, I would, this is one of the things that whenever I'm sitting down with a client, I always ask them, what is your goal?
Right.
What do you want to do with this project? And that's usually one of the first things I'll ask them, because if they, there's different expectations for how you're going to want to build something before you launch.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter whether they want to go the traditional route or the indie route, or, if they just want to write a book so that their family members can order it online, I always tell them, I'm going to plug the 20 Books group, join the 20 Books to 50K group.
Yeah.
Because
I've talked about them too. When I had an interview with Craig Martell last year too.
Which, I mean, that man right there has probably done the most to revolutionize publishing and indie publishing to this present day.
Yeah, and Michael Anderley, I think his last name was Anderley, Michael Anderley. Michael is the one that started the group, everybody, and he's built this community. And so shout out to the 20 Books to 50K group. Yeah. I'm in there, been in there.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, what blows me away, Rachel, is like Michael, I would love to be independently financially stable from my writing. I mean, that would be a blessing. You know what I mean? I would love to get to the point where I'm making enough money from book sales that could be what I'm doing, And that takes a long time sometimes. It seems like, it's kind of weird, but it seems like some people, they just strike it up and boom, 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 knock it out. And then other folks, it seems like, kind of like more like mine. It's like, oh, this is going to be, it's going to be a while. But, but I always look at the Paulo Coelho story. Like, do you know the story about The Alchemist?
I've read it, but I don't know if I know the story behind it.
Okay. So I'll just share my condensed version of it. He published it, sold one copy in the first 6 months, and it was such a slow seller that after the first year, his publishing house released him from the contract. But he believed in this book so much that he took it to another publisher. 10 years goes by. The book's been out for 10 years, and I can't remember who. Somebody saw a picture of like a celebrity or somebody like that with a copy of the book in their hand. Like, you know how that goes sometimes. Like who, what, what's a Barack Obama reading, or what's who's reading what, type thing. And which I didn't know Barack Obama had a readers list that he actually puts out there, like what he's been reading. I thought that was pretty cool. But all of a sudden, The Alchemist like kind of blows up overnight. And it's like one of the most published books of all time now. But it was 10 years later, And I think about that, and I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? Honestly, I see some folks that they just sling out a bunch of garbage, and they sell. They trend the market. That's cool. I don't want to do that. I really don't. And this year I've been working on my second part of the Blood Thrasher book, and I've changed it completely from the stuff that I've been learning about writing and publishing. So now I'm going to do the NaNoWriMo. Is that how you say it? NaNoWriMo?
Yep. National Novel Writing Month. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to do that with my Blood Thrasher 2, and I have the outline written out. I have everything written out, and I have to give a shout out to folks like you, because working with you, that experience working with an editor, that's been part of my growth curve this year. The Save a Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. I read that, I listened to the audiobook, and I interviewed her. That changed. Like, I actually structured the new outline based off of her 15 beats. And I have to give you a shout out, because I had posted, this is the first time I'm going to do a NaNoWriMo, right? I posted something online. You were the only person to reply to me. And not only did you reply, but you wrote a blog post about it. And I was like, that's so cool that you actually took the time to do that, and not just a little typical, blah, 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 but you actually wrote a nice little article about it for your blog. And I thought that was really cool.
I get pretty excited about National Novel Writing Month. And so when I get excited about stuff, I start to go a little bit overboard. So I was like, oh my gosh, I got to find all of these resources. I'm like, let me just put them all in one blog post and shoot that out there.
That's
but,
cool.
I mean, for me, National Novel Writing Month is really kind of in line with my overall writing philosophy, which is that writing is fun, and if you want to do it, you should do it. But if you want to maximize the enjoyment of your experience, it helps to do a little homework.
Yeah.
Because we all, oh my gosh, No Plot, No Problem was the book written by Chris Beatty, who founded NaNoWriMo. And he leads the reader through the experience of National Novel Writing Month from mostly a pantser's point of view. And so he talks about, he's like, when you first start, you've got this great idea, you've got these characters, and you're just putting words down, and it's really great. And then right around the second week, you start having to solve problems with your plot.
Mm.
And that can slow people down. And when I've met people who have said, oh, I tried writing a novel, but I didn't get much past the whatever many words, they're usually stalling out around 5,000 or 10,000 words. Because when we have ideas that strike us, that's usually what strikes us, is maybe 5,000 or 10,000 words of an idea. So I find that it really helps to kind of think about it, especially during before you sit down to write. Just think about it. And Save the Cat is great for that, because it's just 15 beats, right? So you're
Mhm.
not over plotting. You're not plotting so much that you can't have some flexibility to just go with the flow when you need to.
Mhm.
So,
Let
but
me
yeah, I get really excited about it.
let's we got to do a little pledge break real quick here, Rachel. But when we come back, I want to talk to you more about those 15 beats. So
All
give
right.
me just a second. Everybody, you're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
What would you do if you woke up one day and WRUU weren't on your radio dial, like it wasn't even there anymore? You would not be able to find any place in Savannah to get the kind of music and news that only this community radio station brings you. Our more than 60 volunteer hosts would not be working right now to bring you hours of entertaining and stimulating programs. And your global soul would surely miss it. Thankfully, you don't have to wake up without WRUU because people just like you have made generous financial gifts to keep us going. We are listener-supported community radio, so your donation is essential to our continued presence on the air in Savannah. Go right now to WRUU.org and make a one-time or monthly contribution.
Support WRUU with financial contribution of at least $10 per month or a one-time donation of at least $107.50, and you'll receive our 2019 thank you gift, a WRUU travel tumbler. This is a 16-ounce hot or cold beverage container featuring double wall construction with a stainless steel twist-on lid, a slide lock drink opening, and the WRUU logo. It's perfect for taking hot coffee or tea, or iced water or other drinks, with you wherever you go. From car to office, home to school, or gym to bedside, the WRUU travel tumbler will refresh your body as we refresh your mind. We know the real gift of your support comes every day when you tune into Savannah's most diverse, stimulating, and passionate radio programming. Find the details about the WRUU travel tumbler as a gift of our appreciation at WRUU.org. Make your gift right now. Thanks for supporting WRUU Community Radio.
This is listener-supported WRUU 107.5 FM, and we are now in the 9th day of our annual on-air fundraising campaign. We are seeking to raise the funds that keep this radio station broadcasting the music and talk programs that you enjoy. On Saturday, we received 3 donations totaling just under $600. That means we have raised 55% of our $15,000 goal so far. That means that we are on the campaign's downhill end, and you can help us make it to the goal successfully. We set these goals so that WRUU can survive, and with your help, more than survive, thrive. And what it takes is your participation. It's very easy and affordable. You set the amount. Our $10 a month option has been very popular this year. The campaign will end soon, so help us with your financial support today at WRUU.org. And thanks again.
All right, everybody, we are back. And just a personal note, if you're just tuning in, my name is Adam Messer, and this is the Adam Messer Show. I really appreciate all of your support for WRUU. We could not do programs like mine or the other programs that we have on this station without you. So thank you so much. Please go to WRUU.org and show your financial pledge today. So, Rachel, while we were on the little pledge break, I pulled up the Save the Cat Writes a Novel 15 beat sheets. It's on jessicabrody.com website. But I used the beat sheet for outlining my novel. And the difference, like with this one versus the Save the Cat Save the Cat, the original one by Blake Snyder, he's got like 3 of them. But the 15 beats there, he outlines like the pages and where certain beats, like what part of a movie the beat should hit on.
Right.
And on the Save the Cat Writes a Novel, that she doesn't really do that per se. But she definitely, has it set up in Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And so far, what I've found is I listened to and read Stephen King's On Writing. There is another one. It's called If You Want to Write. If You Want to Write. I'm trying to see what is the lady's name. Brenda Euler? Yeah, Brenda Euland. I'm sorry. She has a book called If You Want to Write, and that was a great book. And I've listened to some other ones and done a lot of practicing this year on like outlining and that kind of thing. But the Save the Cat Writes a Novel is the one I keep coming back to. And I really feel like it's a great, it is just a great app or a great model to be able to follow for writing a fiction novel. So do you use, because I know you talked about Blake Snyder's 15 Beats. Do you use the Save the Cat Writes a Novel one, or do you use the Blake Snyder one?
So I use the Blake Snyder one, and that's just because I bought it to work on outlining a screenplay,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically carries over to the same beats that I want to hit in a novel.
Yeah. They're
and
exactly
so
the same beats. It's just the way that she talks about them is a little different than Blake Snyder talks about them.
Yeah, I definitely think that it is one of the most helpful models that I've come across, and I am addicted to writing books like nobody's business. I love to read books about craft. I love to read books about structure and marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and I also really love to read books about editing and giving feedback and critique. And so of all of the, so I've read widely on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that's one of the most helpful because it is a structure, but it's not overly
Formulaic.
watered.
Yeah, it's not overly. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I liked about it was like, okay, here's a structure without saying, A plus B equals C, and this is what you should do in your novel. Because I do feel like, speaking of Hollywood, I do feel like if you look at the movies, you hit the same beats and it's almost the same story over and over and over again. The difference that you have with writing and novels is that the story changes, even though you can use the same beats. I think people have kind of overplayed it a little bit in Hollywood and filmmaking to the point where you already can kind of predict who's going to be the bad guy, what could be the twist, and that kind of thing. And you're just waiting like, oh, yeah, I was right. Or, oh, wait a minute, I was wrong by the end of the movie.
I grew up with my mom. I actually dedicated this anthology to my mom. I grew up with watching movies with my mom and just having to remind her to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give it away.
Stop giving it away.
She would know within she would know by the credit sequence. And she would tell me the whole plot of the movie or the television show we were watching. I said, "Dang it, Mom! Come on.
Quit it! Knock it off!"
I have to say that one of my personal triumphs as a grown-up adult was when we were watching. Oh my gosh, it was the Miss Franny Fisher, the series Franny Fisher. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what's going to happen. And my mom was like, no, that's not what's going to happen. And I was right. I just want to put that out there for the record.
That's so funny.
But like I said, I dedicated the
Just for the record, your mom's listening and she said, no, that's not exactly how it went.
Probably.
You're probably going to hear about it. Like, Rachel, you know better. You know that it wasn't how it went, honey. No.
But yeah, it's so screenwriting, and I say this as somebody who used to do more of it than I do now. It's a lot harder to break into than just any sort of fiction writing. But there's some very specific structural requirements that have to do with how, run times and marketing and how movies are made, that novelists really have a little bit more freedom to play with.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, whatever you're writing, whether you're writing a screenplay, whether you're writing a short story, whether you're writing a novel, whatever you're writing, there's going to be reader expectations based on genre. There's going to be expectations based on even the tropes within the genre.
And would you please break that down for like people that are listening? What a trope is, like an example of a trope.
Okay, so tropes within a genre. Tropes are these things that you see I would call them maybe ingredients. So if you're making cookies, you could have chocolate chip cookies, and the chocolate chips would be the tropes.
I
They're
think, yeah,
something.
I think of them like that. Like it's like with vampires, people just kind of generally accept that they can't go out in daylight and that they're holy water and any kind of holy items are kind of deadly to them. It's just like little things that you just know are part of. Like when you go to get a burger at Burger King, a Whopper's going to be different than other burgers.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up vampires, because within the vampire trope of whatever genre you're in, there's going to be specific vampire tropes, such as the romantic vampire. So you'll have all these stories where the vampire is this romantic figure, and that's a very different vampire than somebody who is like your traditional horror vampire, where they have all of these vulnerabilities. And then you'll see stories like the modern vampire, where they live in the modern world and they have adapted to all of their vulnerabilities. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe, and this is one that I've seen in a number of vampire stories, especially the religious iconology and vulnerabilities. Those are things that only work if the person wielding them really believes in them, which is a very modern vampire trope, which I kind of enjoy reading. So, there's so many different ways to write a vampire story. But if you're reading a vampire story and you want to read something where you're expecting vampires, if you market something as a vampire story and there's like no vampires,
Yeah.
your readers are going to be a little upset with you, and you're going
Oh
to hear
yeah.
about it in your reviews.
Yeah. That's one of the things that the promise of the premise that she talks
Yes.
about, and the
Yes.
readers expect, like if you say I'm going to give you a chocolate chip cookie, I better not get an oatmeal raisin cookie.
Exactly. Especially
I'm gonna
because
be
those
really
are not as
upset.
good.
I'm like, the little funny meme videos that people post about their kids, like thinking it's gonna be like, I remember one. It was a meme of this little girl. She said she wanted Frozen for she said she wanted Frozen for Christmas, so they gave her some frozen peas, and her
Oh
face was just
no.
like, ah, what? You know, that reminds me of like dad jokes, like bad dad jokes, like, you didn't specify, or like that would be to me, like I guess the genie trope, like, okay, well, you didn't give me a specific wish, so I granted the wish, but it wasn't what you were expecting.
Yes, wishes that go wrong based on technicalities is another trope. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
It's very so. The challenge then becomes to incorporate these expectations, to meet the expectations, while also writing something with a unique voice, with interesting
Giving
characters,
it a
so that it
twist.
does, yeah, so it doesn't become the same thing. And it's, this is something that I've become intimately acquainted with, because we're currently in the reading period for next year's
Would you say that
anthologies.
you have become like a trope maestro since the last time we spoke?
There are some tropes I'm very, very familiar with. But here's like a fun writing exercise, and I'm going to share this because it is a lot of fun, especially for people to get to know tropes. If you go to tvtropes.org, that's tvtropes.org, it will contain for you multitudes and multitudes of genres, subgenres, and tropes within those genres.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the pieces of flash fiction that I shared in my Patreon, and actually a number of those pieces of flash fiction, those are writing exercises where I go, you know what? I want to write something with a trope that I haven't used before.
Mm.
And I'll go to TV tropes, because that's the best place to
Try
find
the
them.
tropes out, people.
Yeah. And, sometimes it doesn't go really anywhere. And you're like, okay, well, that was a fun exercise, but, and then sometimes you find something that is a lot of fun. And you're like, hey, maybe this character deserves a short story, or maybe like a little novella or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it can really kind of spark it. So if you're prepping for NaNoWriMo and you're like, you want to inject something new or something interesting, or just, something to stretch yourself to write something that you haven't written before, check out the tropes, try them out, see how they work. And, like I said, maybe you'll find something that's working for you.
I think that's a great point. the not necessarily just the trope part. That's a pretty cool. TVtropes.com is a pretty cool resource. But the part about the doing it, trying something new, stretching yourself, going outside of your comfort zone, is how you grow, I believe. And definitely, like this year, with your anthology, and I know you said you had helped edit collaboratively some other anthologies, but this is the first time you're putting one together and you're kind of running the show with everything. And then the Crone Girls Press, is this your first published piece of writing that you're putting out with Crone Girls Press?
So it is technically the second, but it really is the first.
Okay.
So way back in the beginning of the year, I published a standalone short story, just because. And when I was filling it out on Amazon, there was a space where you could put in the publisher
name. Yeah.
And
was that the Beowulf or Beowulf?
Yep. It was a diesel punk homage to Beowulf, and it was part of the Writer Punk Press anthology, English Class Goes Punk. So I was like, let me just try this out. And then I'm sitting there, I'm looking at Amazon, and there's a space for a publisher, and I just made up the name, put it in there, didn't really think anything of it. I thought, it'd be really fun to have a group, to do a little Facebook group for people who like speculative fiction, particularly stuff like dark fairy tales, grimdark, all that good stuff. And so that was technically the first publication, but at that point I wasn't intending to take it anywhere. I was just making something up for Amazon. But when I came up with the idea of, okay, this is the year I want to do an anthology, I want to start putting other people's work out there and kind of being a cheerleader for other people's work, that was when I came up with, okay, we're going to do an inaugural anthology, and it's going to be specifically from Crone Girls Press. This group is going to be specifically to talk about speculative fiction, dark speculative fiction in general, some of the anthologies specifically, and it'll also be a place for writers who are interested in any of that process to come and check it out, ask questions, kind of get a behind the scenes look at the process.
That's so cool, because when I started doing the Savannah Quill stuff back in 2016, one of the things that I wanted to do was to put out a quarterly magazine. And over the last 3 or 4 years that I've been working on this stuff, doing different things, I've tried stuff out, and some things worked. Like the first magazine, I thought it was pretty fun, and I put it out as like a PDF or whatever, and I just put it out online. And of course, there were errors, like I didn't catch, and there was like one nuance that I had. There was an error where the guy sent me an update, and I thought that I had published the update, but I published the first version of it. And yeah, well, and the thing is like he got really upset about it, and we talked about it or whatever, but we kind of split ways after that because it just didn't work out. But that was, just a nuance. I mean, like to me, those kind of things they're important, but they're not deal breakers to me. But they are for some people, and like things that I think are important. You gotta get it right. But there's stuff that as a self-publisher, you're gonna have errors. I don't care how good you are. You're gonna have different things that happen, and you just have to kind of roll with it. You have to go with it. And you have to say, hey, like you were talking about having to pull the, the final version because you found yet another typo. Those are just kind of things that, you're like, okay, I've seen published works by Tolkien that there were typos in the book. And he talked about that in his, like one of the forwards that he has, talking about different errors and different, things that he clarified after The Lord of the Rings was published, after The Hobbit was published, things like that. So, it's just part of the publishing world that no matter how much you do or how much you try to, get everything just right, we're human beings and we're going to still make mistakes. And trying different things out is pretty cool.
Well, this is one of the reasons why the first anthology, I didn't want to just open up to a huge amount of submissions.
Yeah.
I wanted to work with people that I knew would give me good work, and that would be a team. Like, I really feel that the authors in this anthology are a little bit of a team. We
Yeah.
share each other's stuff. When I send out emails, I'll send them out to all the people on the team. And, I've had people get back to me with really great ideas for promotion. I've had people like yourself offer to host me on your radio show. It's not like you guys sent me your stories, I sent you a check, and then booted the anthology out into the harsh, wild world, saying, fly. We're not doing that. We're kind of all part of it, and I hope that the people who are in this anthology, the authors who have entrusted me with their work for exclusively for the 6 months, and then after that, we'll continue publishing. I hope they really do feel ownership. I hope they do feel part of that team, because that was definitely part of what I wanted to have happen during the reading period, during the editing process, and now as we're getting ready for publication.
Yeah, I think that it definitely has been an interesting experience with working with you, and then also interacting with the other authors in the group. And it's things like I know I've bounced a couple ideas off to you about different things or whatever, and I'm sure other people have too. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I'd like to see it, get out there and kind of make a movement. And I think at one point, I haven't checked it lately, but at one point it was like number one in a couple of the little spots, and like pretty high up there in some of the other spots. And on Amazon, that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, like my Blood Thresher book hit, I think, number 2 last year, and it was doing pretty good for a little while in the 1 hour mystery thriller type category. And I don't necessarily agree with the way that they categorize stuff sometimes, but it is what it is. They know a lot better than I do on how to market and advertise books to readers. So I'm like, okay, Amazon, if you say it's a thriller, it's a thriller. Guess what? I'll go with that.
Well, it's funny that you should say that, because I went, you can add up to, I think, 7 or 10. You can add a number of categories other than the ones that you initially fill in. So I did some research on categories that had a little bit of room to grow in them, and sent Amazon an email and asked if we could be put in them. And at least 2 of them, they responded back and were like, "Oh, we already put you in there." Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's definitely, Amazon is a topic for like 5 other days.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest with you, there's a thing I love about Amazon. You do have the ability to self-publish, to get your own books. They're very good about making the resources available to you, and they sell their stuff to you, but it's not, I don't know, they don't really market to you as an author to try to say, hey, buy more. It's just more like, hey, here's a resource, you can sell these things. And one of the things I love about publishing through Amazon is that like my books are over at the eShaver booksellers. They're an independent bookseller, and they rely and they deal in and they work with people like me who are independent self-published authors, and they're very supportive. So I can order my books through Amazon, I can take them to eShaver booksellers, and then people can buy them at a real bookstore. And they can also buy them on Amazon, but they can buy them at a real bookstore. And that's one of the things that, that I love about having that ability to do it, because I'm not going to buy 1,000 copies of a book, but I could buy, 5 or 10. I don't have the kind of money to spend on 1,000 copies of a book and try to distribute them and try to put them out to, 10,000 different bookstores or whatever. I can't do that. But I can buy 5 or 10, and I can, do events and stuff like that. So we have to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to agree that it definitely has been a game changer to have these functions that used to be only available to massive publishers, available for basically anybody, like including myself.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, Rachel. We have to, everybody tuning in, we have to do a station break, and we're going to do our pledge drive break. And at the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to be coming back with our special guest today, Rachel Brune. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being with me today on the show. It's been a lot of fun so far.
Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to the second hour, where we're going to kind of get in the nuts and bolts of editing and writing and some of that good stuff. So do you mind sharing like what's in your treasure trove with the audience?
Absolutely. I'd like to talk about some of the different forms of editing. So if people are writing something, they know what's available, what's out there. And then I'd also like, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about the difference between editing as someone who's in a coaching aspect as opposed to editing an anthology.
That is a great topic there, Rachel. So everybody stay tuned, and you're going to be listening to the 4 o'clock hour of the Adam Messer Show with our special guest, Rachel Brune.
What would you do if you woke up one day and WRUU weren't on your radio dial, like it wasn't even there anymore? You would not be able to find any place in Savannah